Play it one more time. I wish I had these at the gym. These are so cool. I feel like that first rep was like a little bit of a tester. Pretty good overall. What do you guys think?
Yeah, good
Minus that one.
control. Yeah,
Yeah,
good
I love
control,
the
good depth.
control. I think the first one was definitely just like a confidence boost rep, just to kind of feel it before she committed with going all the way down there. Because that would have been my first thing was be to get lower. When you guys watch people do dips, what are you looking for a good range?
Shoulders hit the rings.
Yeah, and like you can think of it as a squat. So elbow's the knee and the shoulder is the hip. We know our depth that we want for a full range of motion squat. We want that same depth. So like on this rep, I'm only stopping it here because it's the only one she does it on. That'd be like a parallel squat. She does a good job though. I think that was fully just to feel it more than like her cutting that range out, or maybe somebody other her. I don't know. The one thing I will say about this though is like when you've got a class, especially I think with like dudes, only rolled, like you can tell they have like the huge pecs, and you know they're about to not be able to overhead squat kind of vibe. Um, or like when it comes to women and they just show like an instability, be very careful with the depth of dip. Don't put somebody into a compromised position. Like if they have pain or they have tightness, don't shove them down there. Or if they show a little instability, I would also be careful with the depth or have them at a height to where they can put their feet on the floor very quickly and not like fall. Um, because we aren't in this position every day and it can be compromising. But once she gets past this first rep, really nice job with the depth. Good lockouts, Gina. Nice work. What else you guys got? Pretty darn happy overall, though. Going to become more of like trying to be perfect, I would say, cues. I see something I would like and something that she does really well.
So yeah, she's her whole body is coming down and coming up at
Love
the
it.
same time. And then at the top, she's not like turtle in, she goes out.
Yeah, she gets a really good active shoulder.
Right.
So like watch her shoulders here, right? It's like they're almost covering her ears. They're very close, and then we get to the top. All of a sudden, look at the gap. I can see she does have active shoulders. This is something I think on the rings, in a handstand push-up that a lot of coaches just forget to find. And like even if you hold somebody in the spot, like they could sit there and they're like that turtle, like Dee is saying, or I can have them active shoulder and push down. And even if they never do a ring dip or parallel bar dip, that's going to build strength and going to build a lot of shoulder stability. So really nice job with that, Gina. Really good catch with a good QD. All right, what's something we can cue to get it even better? Simple. Think perfect gymnast.
Maybe
Perfect legs.
you
Sorry, D.
no, you go. That's fine.
No, just squeezing the thighs and the butt.
Yeah.
Kind
So
of juggling around a little bit.
Yeah,
if
that's what I
you
was,
look, if you look from her hip up, she does such a good job. Like there's this little bit of teeter that happens, right? And I think this is something that coaches mess up all the time. You want this little teeter because the pec is going to be helping some. They coach it like it's a push up, and instead of it being a total body teeter, it becomes a hip flexion, and then they're just literally doing like a push up and a teeter, and not making it a push up. But I do think there could be more tension down here. Very happy with the reps overall. That is just purely trying to chase virtuosity, pretty much. Um, and when we do have tension and we have global tension, it can make that press feel a little lighter just when everything is staying tense all the time through the reps versus there is a relaxation. Now, I will say you might have just been very cautious that not you don't want to run into the box. Because if you were in a straight line with the teeter, your feet would hit the box, and that may have just like accidentally tactile cued you to like relax down there. But really, really, really nice job overall, dude. I don't know about y'all. To me, you look strong. Did anybody else hear?
No.
It's like you have volume, but it's very low. I don't know if it's not through your mic or. Try one more time. Oh well. Say it one more time. You don't have to scream. I just want to see. I've turned the volume up. Is it from like the bottom when the feet type forward? With the feet. I think I know what you're saying. You can thumb me up or thumb me down. I'm gonna say it. So she's saying with the feet how they're kind of hiking forward in the bottom of the dip. Okay. Yeah, if it you would technically like keep that hollow shape, but the hollow shape is such a small hollow shape that you look more like a straight line. So when that upper body teeters, the feet would actually end up behind the rings. So if you looked at the bottom, let's get you to a full range rep. Sorry, I thought I was going to pause right there, right? You have this is shaped and it has that little bit of teeter going, but then the feet are directly under. So if you look and say, is she like, do you have balance of this frontal plane? Technically, you don't because it's like there's more weight shifted on the front half because the front part teetered versus the feet. Now, if you were in that hollow in a straight line, you have equal weight on each side if that plane was running through the hands. Does that make sense? So it's just like a pull up. We have to balance as we move through. Same thing here, and it would just give you probably a slightly stronger bottom position than if the feet are directly under. You have to use more of your brute strength to stay there. Like if I made you pause, it'd be easier to balance on the point than to have to fight balance on that frontal plane point. Did that kind of like answer what you were asking or saying? Okay, cool. I thought I got it. These headphones are pretty powerful. You can really fly it. Good work there for sure. Go to a barbell. Only video I got today, not Justin Medina. Android filmed this, guys. I'm sorry. It's not the greatest quality. You guys can cue the clean, you can cue the thruster, whatever you want. What you guys think?
I think everything looks good. She definitely with the squat clean, it was more like a power clean and lower to the squat at first. But with the thruster, her hip drive is awesome to get that barbell up on all 3 reps. Kudos to Issa. And I would say just on that rep, when she lowered to the shoulder, she kind of paused. I would say try to receive it a little bit more. So it kind of helps with your momentum going down and going back up. But overall, it looks really, really good.
It is pretty good overall. And I definitely think if it is that heavy, like I don't know what y'all's WOD was, but let's say this is It's clearly maybe not a Metcon, or because this girl's just like hanging out cheering her on back there. So I hope it's not a Metcon. Looks like some kind of heavy day complex. Um, if she needs to pause and like come down and like take a breath and go again, like I'm okay with it. But I definitely think like she's trying to get the skill of being fluent. It could be something she thinks about and works on. Do you guys want to start with the squat clean? Or do you just want to start with the thruster?
Start with a squat clean.
All right. And then at least I do agree, hip extension's phenomenal on the thruster. Nice catch. All right, let's look at squat clean real quick. Tough one because there's a lot. There's a lot good.
Mm-hmm.
What would you guys say on that?
Nice bar bath for sure.
Most of the time,
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little scoop.
look for the
But
gap. There's a
at the lower,
brief moment.
once she passes the
Top
hip,
of
it
the
does
hip.
get out in front, but
Yeah,
right there, yeah,
it's the last part. Like she does everything right, right?
step
Setup's
design.
great. Yeah, everything's fantastic. Setup's good. Liftoff is great. And normally she like teeters and lets it pull her more. She's not doing that here, which I'm very happy to see. I think that's a good improvement. Like she's a very light girl, so she's got to fight that barbell back. But where it's gonna bite her in the ass later is in this section here. Like you can see right there, that bar is already away. Like look where her hip is versus look where that barbell is, right? It's a brief moment that she lets it skate, but that whole region, that's where we want to really correct. Like this is not obviously a one rep max clean weight because she's doing thrusters and multiple reps for it. But if we are one rep maxing, this is a fault that's gonna make her fail and potentially not get that load. So I want to just see her stay a little closer and try to find more of a brush through that high thigh and then close with it, especially this is everybody, but especially because she is such a small athlete and she is cleaning more than body weight, like it's going to immediately yoke her forward and it's going to make that receive fall apart. Um, Besides rush, what might cause in other athletes like this to pop out in this region?
To jump forward, maybe. What was your question? Kind of
Like
went out.
imagine if she was doing a clean pull, right? And in her
Oh,
clean pull, she does her clean pull and the bar pops away from her body. And obviously we don't want that to happen. We want it to brush through and stay close. What's some
going on the toes.
yeah, like just getting pulled forward in general, like toes, that would bad bar
Yeah,
path would do it too. What if weight in the heels, good lift off, everything's on point, and it still creeps away?
if you're thrusting the hip forward instead of up, bouncing it off.
Yes. Yeah, Gina threw that in the comments too. Yeah, so like not scooping the second pull, like giving the bar a baby and pushing it. Also, how tense are the arms? So if you're doing
is it cutting out for you guys too?
and
Yeah,
it probably it probably is because I'm on a hotspot. So my apologies. Hold on. It says unstable. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, we got it now. I think when I move too much, it gets too excited. Um, So if I'm like really flexing my arms and I've got like my triceps flexed and I'm trying to do like clean or snatch pulls, that tension when it does make contact with the hip, even though my contact may be pretty good, will bounce the bar out. So even though like someone's not doing a like a clean pull where they're just adding in a shrug, we want the arms to be straight, but we also want them to be able to be like malleable and pliable. So if you're like too tense in the arms and you're flexing the triceps, you'll bounce your bar out on accident as well. So that's something you can look for, especially like in a progression. Not that we're doing a high pull, but if someone is too tense and the bar's getting away, just tell them to relax their arms, and that can make a really big difference in bar path too. That's why when you see a lot of like Olympic athletes do it, they're either being quick and it's like they're not high pulling, but they have this little baby high pull that happens, or they get up into their tippy toes and they hold it and they're like really reinforcing positions. That's why you see those two styles. So just that gap in the clean is my biggest thing. Everything else I think is phenomenal. She does great. Let's go thruster.
I have a question before we move to the thruster.
Go
Because
ahead.
I find it's really hard for a lot of athletes to understand that cue of keep your arms relaxed when you're trying to do the pull. Is there like another way to say that would make them understand? Because that sometimes doesn't work for me. A lot of the time doesn't work for me. And imagining that they're like ropes doesn't work for me either. I don't know what else to say.
And the person's always doing this.
No, just when they're doing the pull, that I'm telling them just keep your arms loose and jump up like so that the bar will kind of come up by itself. They still keep their arms straight. Like they don't get that they need to leave their arms loose.
So change the cue in like the thought process. Be like, I need you to jump before you pull your arms at all. Like make it more about the jump than the arms.
And
Does that make sense?
okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
just change that.
But
Or I
even
need
if
you.
they pull a little bit, as long as they pull at the right time, it's fine.
Yeah, as long as the core to extremities happening and they're
Right.
getting extension before the shrug and the arms happen, then we're good. Like we don't
Okay.
have to over exaggerate it. And you're gonna give that cue sometimes. Like I'll say jump before you pull. I'll say get as tall as you can before you bend your arms. Like just as many different wording ways as possible that you need. As long as it gets better, give the
Right.
acknowledgement of better and be like, I need more patience and more timing. And it may take some time. Like it's a hard one, I think, to overcome, especially if you have years of pulling early.
Yeah, but I mean more like, because there are two different progressions. I guess you got the high pull and then you just got the pull. But with the pull, you're not
So
intentionally high pulling. You're just letting your
but
arms kind of
a
right.
tiny high pull is going to happen. And you're going to have athletes too that you may be doing a clean pull and they kind of come up and they do this like quarter high pull. I don't tell them no. As
Okay.
long as their timing's right, we're getting to
Doesn't
where we
matter.
need to go in the progression, and I don't care. Now they just may have to do two progressions in a row of high pulls, but they'll live, no big deal.
Okay.
Let's look at the thruster.
Nice elbows.
Yeah, it's good, pretty good rack from the shoulder. Like the squat, if it was a little taller coming out, would I think help for sure. It's very, very small though. What's your biggest adjustment here? At least nailed it with the timing. Love. She gets extended before she presses. What's
She
gonna make
actually she misses the timing a little bit on the first thruster, and then she gets it on the second thruster.
that one? That one you do see it. It gets a little better. Let's watch the first one again. The one off the squat clean.
Yeah, no, right there. There's a little pause, and the second time there's no pause when she receives it.
Oh, you mean more when she puts the bar on?
Yeah, when she receives it on her collarbone. The first one she kind of right
There.
there pauses, and the second time she comes right down. The timing's perfect.
Yeah, and I think that's just because it's heavy load. Like ideally, I think definitely finding a good rack in transit is going to be the best. But if you ever do have people doing a heavy thruster and they need to pause a second, like whatever, like they can take the pause. For her extension though, like her getting here, like she's using those hips. Like I think she does a great job on that. What do you think's gonna? What's the one cue you could give her that's gonna make her maximize her load?
I don't know, keep her chest higher, taller, stay taller in the squat.
It's not egregious. Like it would be helpful for her rack and probably her wrist comfort, but watch her midsection during the
I was just
thrust.
say keep her ribs down.
She loses, yeah, she hyperextends back. You see the
Mhm.
hyperextension?
Mhm.
And now like one of like two things are in my thought process. Is she just losing some tension and she's leaning back? a little bit, or it's hard to tell from this angle, is she going around her face some and it's not a perfectly good bar path? I can't really tell, to be honest, but I would really like try to stay as tense and keep those ribs down through as possible. Because as the weight gets heavier as well, in this, see how she's leaning backwards here, right? If I freeze that, this leaning back makes this bar want to start to leap forward. So if I can get these ribs down a little bit and everything starts to get more into a straight line, which is going to help her get more weight pressed overhead, versus the worse this gets, the more she's liable to circle around also. So that would be my biggest thing, I think, in her thruster. You guys see what I mean? This is probably the best
I
point to
guess
look
I
at
was
that.
just thinking that maybe it was like at that point that it's heavy enough that she, like she's struggling to get in that positions.
Maybe, yeah, definitely a thing. Right? But I need to fight against that as much as I can so I can
Yeah.
maximize her load. And then, we still have the old threshold training, right? If things get heavier and people can get the job done, but they're absolutely losing position and struggling, then are we doing our jobs as coaches too? Like, I don't think she's in a position that I need to tell her to not add load or take weight off the bar by any means. I think that's fine. But we want to make sure that we're not letting the fault progress as intensity progresses, because she is about to add more load on the bar, and there is the potential that that fault gets bigger. It's always a thought process. I just taught a class at Bar 10, right, and was getting evaluated by level 4 staff, and 9 people, 6 of them were probably 65 years old and up, right? Not real athletic, really tough in body positions, and I had to go up to pretty much all 6 of them and be like, "Hey, you're going to stay here." And I had to do that because they were still trying to understand how to move, and nothing was egregious. It was just rolled forward shoulders, like typical stuff you would see like in a deadlift. But I know when we put weight on the bar, that's only going to get worse, and it's going to grow into a loss of neutral spine and things like that. So it's almost like you're playing detective and you're playing problem solver before these problems actually occur, as much as you can, because obviously it's still going to happen sometimes. You still gotta do your thing.
So that's one of the things when I'm coaching that I I'm good at intuitively, but I have a tendency to doubt myself. I think it's just confidence as a coach, and also kind of what other coaches there, staff watching, or the owner or something, without maybe being more familiar with an environment. But I do it, and I feel good about it, but then I doubt myself, or I'm afraid to do it to get whatever corrected.
Don't doubt yourself. I think the biggest issue, and I've kind of come to this conclusion in the past like 3 months, I think the biggest issue with relentless coaching is like a little bit of a lack of self confidence and a lack of doubt, right? Because I was there and I'm like, no, people don't like it. And I'm like, I'm being annoying. And the reality is when I went to Sola and I moved out of Florida and started coaching, I was like, this is my chance to become that relentless coach. No one knows who I am. No one knows my style. So I can rewrite and redo what I need to do to get where I need to going as a coach. So I did that. And it's the wildest thing to me. People are coming up to me after class, after I've been relentless, after I've told them to take weight off, and they're like, "Thank you. I came today because you were coaching. I wasn't going to come." And like
Yeah.
that's starting to happen. So like when you are doing it, don't have the vibe of like doubting or, man, maybe I'm being annoying and things like that. Like when your heart's in the right place, you're showing them you care more, and they know it.
And that was my experience. I had that experience. I think it's more of ownership, or
And
that,
okay,
that's
I'm gonna
where
give
my confidence comes fail, not with the members.
I'm going to give you another tool that I think will make you feel even better. When you do have a coach watching you or your owner is watching you, chances are, and the reality is, they aren't doing it either. they're probably letting things fall through the crack. It's very common to do, especially when we know members. We know Bob doesn't like to push his knees out and doesn't squat low enough. And, Bob's 60 years old, so I give him that little pass. We get used to doing that, and they're probably doing it even more. So don't let that like mess with you, right? And yes, there's going to be coaches that are better than you sometimes, and yes, there's going to be opinions made, but like, awesome. Thank you for the opinion. Thank you for the feedback. It's only going to make you grow if you do feel like it's a situation. And then if it's a situation, they're like, "Why'd you make that guy squat low enough?" It's kind of like, well, 25 years from now, he's going to need to get off the toilet, and I don't want him to live in a nursing home. And like, how do you argue that statement?
Yeah.
So let yourself have the confidence. Don't let that mess with you. Act like they're not even there watching.
Okay.
Yeah.
The more,
Yeah.
Go ahead, D.
I was just gonna say, if you see something, say something. Like, you're the coach, you've studied this, So if you see something weird, like, just go for it. It doesn't matter, Like, I had the same issue at Riptide because I had Santi, who's, level 3 staff member watching me, and I felt the same way you felt, Holly. Like, you can ask Nate. And it wasn't until I came to Puerto Rico and started coaching that I felt like I could be myself and I had more confidence because I didn't have him on top of me. I felt like my classes just flowed a little bit more.
And let me ask you this: when you went to Puerto Rico and coached, it's not like you went and did this huge coaching course. You were doing all these things right, but it was your own self-doubt in your head that was messing with you and making you question things. And I think that's normal. That just tells me, you guys care about what you're doing, and that's a really good thing. Like self-evaluation and stuff like that should always be happening. But let yourself be you. Like, to see something, say something is a great thing. I had a conversation with a different staff member like a month ago, and he was like, "You need to be a TSA agent when you're coaching." And what is that? Isn't that their exact saying? See something, say something.
Yeah.
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 Let it rip. Like, if anything, error on the other side where you're doing it too much, and I promise you, good results will happen. It's a weird hump to get over, though. It took me a while to like get used to that, being relentless, saying something all the time, and I think it is like a confidence thing that grows over time. I guess it took until the point that I was like, I'm the best one in this room for me to let that rip. But don't let that get to that point. Let it rip now. All right. I think Gina's doing a muscle up. Oh, threw me off. No muscle up. Pretty dang nice. Okay, so this is something I do. Don't know if it'll help you guys, but I almost tier people in my head of like, where are they and like, what are their goals? So, like, if grandma comes in and it's her first week in CrossFit, like, okay, our goal is to stay functional and improve functionality in life, right? So she never needs to do a butterfly pull up. If I've got intermediate athlete, like, his goal is to get fitter, to feel better, and to keep that going. And then I've got like someone like Gina or someone that's been doing it for a little while, is also doing extra things in class, trying to improve. And I kind of put them in my like, they're my competitor category. And whether or not they ever go to a competition, it just kind of helps me distinguish what I want to cue and correct and make even better. So this butterfly pull up is pretty good, right? Good balance, chin over the bar, full range. It's a nice set, so there's some good stamina there. Like, overall, I really like it. And I think if you had a class of 10 people, she may be the last person who says something. With the thinking of, if she was a competitor, if she was competing, what do I need to do to make this better? What would the goal be if this was Fran at a competition and you're doing it for time? The goal would be to go faster, right? To win the event. So with that thought in mind, what would you maybe want to start to change or start to have her work on that's going to make it even better?
I would say have more tension, like throughout.
That's for sure a part of it. Tension's mostly, I think, in the back, right? Gets into a little bit of a scorpion.
Yeah.
So what would be butterfly pull up? It's a circle, right? We have this circle going. If I'm drawing that circle, you can ask yourself, what's going to take more time? Drawing a bigger circle or drawing a tighter, fast, like that's the word, a tighter, smaller circle, right? That tighter circle is going to be a lot quicker. So, like in the case of this butterfly pull up, watch the circles. They're a little bigger. It's a little, she spends some time in the front end, especially in the arch, right? I don't want to take away this pull up at all and change it. But if we just start to work on making this circle smaller, now in the time, this is a 15-second video. The first 2 seconds are her walking up to the bar. The time it takes for her to do these reps, and it's maybe a 12 second span, I'm getting in an extra rep or two, right? And then if you start to add that in a workout where she's got, 4 rounds of going to the pull-up bar, and you're getting a 4 second advantage every time you touch the pull-up bar over your athletes because you're doing tighter circles. If there's 4 rounds, a 4 second advantage is 16 seconds. And you see how that starts to compound, very minimal. So what Dee said, having more tension is going to be the path to a tighter circle. So I would just very, very slightly over time, Gina, start to work on being a little tighter, getting a little smaller in the circle so you can start going a little faster. Does that make sense to all you guys?
Mm-hmm.
I would bring that up to start to do here because she is showing me good confidence on, multiple reps, pretty line on let's get it tightened up, let's get it quicker, and starting to do that.
Hey, Nate, other than just saying like get a tighter or smaller circle, what are some, I don't know, some other cues? It's just not quite clicking. Like, how do you make that happen?
Squeeze your butt, squeeze your legs.
I would start there. Yeah. Yeah. Instead of having this like pause it one.
Just back
This
to like the Diana said, basically.
Yeah, back with this like big back like butt kick that's going on. Like let's try to get that going. Cause if I go to stretch you, right? And you're just totally limp and relaxed and I stretch you, I'm gonna move more distance and it's more flexibility of the stretch. Versus if you go to like, if you're doing a hamstring stretch and you relax, I pick your leg up and I push it back. Versus now if I tell you to do it yourself and don't pull on it and just lift your leg with your own muscles, everything's tighter. You're not going to have as much of a range. So if we start to add the tightness, so just simply put to start, hey, let's straighten the legs out. Let's not butt kick ourselves like we are in this image here. She's probably going to tighten up the circle and it's probably going to get a little smaller just as it is with tension already. So I would definitely start with that. A good thing to ask yourselves is, we have this advanced movement. If you're ever like, how can I make this better? Go back to whatever basics are in that advanced movement. So like butterfly pull up, what's the 2 most basic things that are in this movement?
Superman and I mean hollow and arch.
Yep, hollow and arch, right? No one even needs a pull up to get that better. So on our statement of making that butterfly faster and tighter, what did we say? Let's straighten the legs out. Let's get a better arch going. Like I know Gina can lay on the floor, put her feet together and do a Superman hold. We just need to apply that on the pull-up bar now. So even when you look at this advanced movement of a butterfly pull-up and people are going and, 10% of our gyms even able to do this movement, it literally still goes back to the most 2 basic things that are there. If I'm looking at a squat snatch, what about those 2? A deadlift
Deadlift.
and an overhead squat.
Yeah.
Right. Imagine someone has the most perfect snatch grip deadlift you've ever seen, and they have the most perfect, beautiful, heavy overhead squat you've seen. There's only one little piece in the middle that's missing from that first thing in that second thing. right? So they're probably going to have a pretty damn good snatch. So you can always break it down to the most minimal, finest movement you can. And if you need to, you can break it down even into an air squat if you had to from like something like that. So anytime you guys are questioning, like, what can I do? Go back to those basic, simple things. Are we checking the box with virtuosity and very well there? It's a pretty simple yes or no. Like if she did that hollow on the ground and her heels were facing straight up to the sky, you'd be like, "What are you doing?" Right? So yes or no. If the answer is no, let's tighten that up, and it's going to just make it better. And then when we talk about making it that much better, and she's getting faster, she's going to be less time, more efficiency. So she's also going to be saving energy while moving like she wants to.
I did that today in class. We have pull-ups and I had them start with a strict kip, but I split that up into, okay, we're going to hang and you're only going to squeeze your abs and that's the hollow. And then you're going to do the arch and you're going to squeeze your back, your like your lower back, your butt, and you're going to try to bring your chest in. And that actually helped a lot of them that couldn't even really kip well, figure that out as
Understand.
I understand it. Yeah.
Like with that, that's a perfect example of like what I was saying earlier. It's like you solved a problem before the problem started. Before everyone was on the bar and you had the dude swinging like a pendulum, you solved that and then it never happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's good coaching, right? It's not just cueing somebody and getting them to move better. It's avoiding those situations. I've been doing that in my class as well. General warm up. We do a hollow on the floor. I like to do a progression because I think everyone's hollow sucks most of the time. Roll over, do a Superman, and then jump on the bar. I teach them active shoulder, sit in your hollow. And I always split them up with partners. And then I don't always have them go to the arch, but if I do, I have a partner even kind of to spot them so they can hold. And then we go to the kip, and I'll tell you, you're 100% right. If I have one person swinging, it's maybe one.
Yeah.
Everyone else is nailing it. Even brand new people that have never done it before are
Yeah.
nailing it because of those stage things. So that's a great job.
Yeah, because you also I first had them do the hollow, then the arch, and then I put them together. And I said, okay, I'm going to say hollow, you do hollow, then you do arch. And I did that like 3 times. And then after that, now you go on your own and make that flow. And
Kip
then
swing.
everybody was like, got it.
Yeah, it's solid. The one thing that I layered in that I learned the hard way is like when you do pause it and they work on those positions, when it's time to go to the kip swing, being like, hey guys, as soon as you start, you're never going to
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
That's a big one because the new person goes like
Oh,
hollow and then
yeah.
goes to arch and then they're swinging already. So
Yep.
I always cue them like you start it, you don't stop it, you let it
Yeah.
flow.
Yeah.
All right, Justin, you're up. I want to try to find. Here's a new one.
Hell yeah, nice fail on this one.
The fail one. I think this was one from last week. Oh, there it is. Oh, dang, dude, I thought you were doing a burpee. Okay, let's look at it again. So I think I see why you failed, right? There's a couple things going on here, but I think I see why you're like, nope. I don't know if I'm right. I got to watch it a couple times, maybe.
And I think this is my PR. I think I was matching my PR on this one.
It's high. All right, what do you guys think?
I think he brought his shoulders up a little too fast. Like
Does happen.
his hips and his shoulders didn't rise at the same time. I think he went
Yeah, he does.
around his knees a little bit. Then the early pull. And then slow elbows. I think ultimately it was like you weren't just confident.
Huge part of that.
Yeah.
Zero confidence at all.
Huge part of it. I think out of all the things that happens, right, there's stuff to work on for sure. The confidence is like the main reason I think this list fails, right?
Mhm.
Because I mean, if I just stop here, like, are the elbows through? They're not what we want, but they are, right? The bar's on the shoulder, the bar got high enough, like all those things check the box well. But I think you were just like a little bit of fuck this, like this is nerve wracking, right? That happens,
Yeah.
and then
Feel that.
watch when the bar like actually contacts. I also think I'm gonna freeze it here. Okay. So look at where your hips are here. Like everything's kind of shifted forward. And then you're about to fail it, but look where your hips are there. You see how your hips are more back? Even though your hips are kind of back and down, everything's real shifted. And it's like if we did that squat that doesn't have the good line of action, and that person goes straight down, and then eventually they have to shift back to not fall over or to not chase things forward. That kind of happens to you here. And then when that shift needs to occur, I think you lose a hair of core as well. And like the combo of being real nervous and then not being in a strong receive position where a shift had to happen, you kind of lose it. And it gets like, watch the video. It's a real quick wobble you see before he gets rid of it. Right there. Like you see a little like shakiness. So I think it's a combination of things that happens with it. What would y'all What's a good thing for Justin to do as he builds?
As he builds, you say?
Yeah. Like
As
we
you're
need
saying,
to
as he builds in
Walk
weight.
yeah, like we're starting an empty barbell. It's 1 rep max day, or heavy doubles, triples, doesn't really matter.
Got it.
And he's gonna start to build this clean and warm it up. Like we've gone through the progression, all that stuff.
I'm thinking squat cleans. Get comfortable with catching that bar and coming down to the base.
Yeah. Every receiving position, I'm gonna make Justin hold,
Mm.
right? Is he gonna love me that day for it? Maybe not, but he might after he PRs. But yeah, I'm gonna hold in that position just to start to get comfort with it, right? And if I take Justin, he does a squat clean with an empty barbell, and with that empty barbell, he lands all the way in the bottom, right? And I make him sit. I'm like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and then he stands, and then he adds fives or tens and does it again, and then at fives or tens and does it again. That's going to start to translate into these heavier loads versus if he does, his first ones with the barbell and tens and 15s, and it's like he catches and stands up real fast, and he doesn't really embrace the weak point. And when I say weak point, like that could be physically or that could be mentally weak point, then he's never going to really get over it because he's never really spent time there, right? It's the same thing as when Holly goes, "Oh, I'm great if no one's watching me coach class, but if another coach is coaching or my owner is, I get weird." Ain't no different than that than what I just did with a level 4 seminar staff member. Like, I don't even care he's watching. The reason I don't care he's watching is because I've done it a million times now. So it's like the same thing with training. Like, Justin, get down there, hold that position. It's going to become your best friend. And then over time, ideally, Justin's the guy that gets to the point now. At max, he cleans that thing. He sits, he goes to stand it up, and it's not even a lack of being able to get under the bar or a lack of confidence. It's like he's got so good at it that now it's just strength and standing up front squat. And like we've seen those people in our gyms, right? You kind of have to learn that it's going to be okay before you're willing for it to happen and the magic to happen. So just the next time you clean, snatch, like any of these things, get down there, hold that position. Even if you don't PR, but like make it your effort to get it in one motion and embrace that zone.
I did that actually on this workout. This was the 12 minutes. Go ahead and build up, and I would probably say I got, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 decent lifts in. I'd probably hit 5 pauses when the weight was a little bit lighter. As it started getting
This is
heavier, I
my
was like, I can't do this, but I'm still gonna go for that heavy
gotta
weight.
bro still comes out at some point, I think, for everybody. This is my question. was it the same exact result, or was it an improvement for when you were doing those pauses? Like, would you say you moved the needle on what was happening this day, or was it what the same thing that's been happening in the last 4 months?
So what I actually noticed on this last one, even though I failed it, I was like really happy with it. It was one of the better looking
Fails.
fails, or at least was happy with is what was going on with my knees. They weren't like caving in. Like before, they were just absolutely caving in. And now I'm at least getting them to track over my feet. And so my focus here was just not let your knees cave in. I was
You
getting
are
wider, more starfishy. And so I was trying to be more, and they're still pretty wide. I mean, it's not like terribly egregious, but
I also
yeah, I
think
was happy overall.
with how wide they are, that does limit you on being able to get into more of that hip back and down solid squat too. Um, the reason I'm such a fan of pauses is you cannot pause in a bad position. Like you have to be in a good position anatomically to be able to stop motion. So like my favorite example is like a push jerk where people land and they don't have their butt back in a push jerk. Like you can't stand backwards with weight over your head in that you've got to push your butt back and make yourself balanced. Um, when you did do the pauses, did you feel like you did a better job in those until it at least got to a certain point in load?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all we want, right? The reality is, and whether we're working, coaching, being an athlete, all these things, like Rome doesn't get built in a day, but we each tear down some building blocks every day. Does that make sense? So if you feel and like your statement of right, my girl failed a deadlift today, and that was my exact thing. I was like, that was a great fail because the set before her butt shot up over her shoulders and she basically like RDL'd it real nasty. And I was like, shoulders need to stay above the whole time. I gave her that cue and she got the bar off the ground. But what she didn't do was shoot the hips over. And I'm like, that was awesome. That's exactly what we needed. So good fails can happen for sure too. Any other thoughts on that? I have one more nerdy thought. A good fail, if we stay in good position, on the thought of a deadlift since we're on that topic. And that girl drove into the ground, right? The bar moved an inch off the floor, but she didn't get the deadlift, but she kept a good position. What did we do? We just did an isometric hold in good positioning, which is going to do what? Reinforce that those weaker points and get those stronger. So even though it was a failed, it's not like a lost rep. Let's try this one more. I think it's the old video that we never got. I like your use of the dip for the clean. You use as a driver. On that note, though, what could be better?
Better more hip extension.
Yeah, you're using that so well, getting under, but you definitely there. On the very last, I'm gonna speed it up. Like on the very last rep, it actually does open up more. Oh. And I think that's probably just because of fatigue, and you're like, oh, I need help.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with good hip extension when anything's overhead versus hip extension on a pull, getting it off the floor.
Your hip extensions off the floor are good. You love the tension. So it's kind of funny. You started like a decent job, kind of just I like the little jumps, but you're like staying in the ballpark. And then as you fatigue, you start to just get wider and wider with it. that could be something, a good thought process thing when we talk about like barbell cycling. We had those fast snatches yesterday, the mayhem people. Like that was my focal point in like teaching was a pseudo stance, not right under the hips, but not like and I had them just work on
We lost you.
my back.
You're back now.
You guys see anything else? There's something I want to do with the front rack, but I'm not sure what it is to be honest. You guys have any thoughts with it? Definitely a hair
I
wider.
think you're bringing his hands a smidge.
Yeah, just a little bit, right?
Yeah, and like I don't know if it's because his hands are wide that his elbows are like caved
Yeah.
in. But like
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm seeing.
Hands are wide because of
The
the lack
overhead.
of shoulder mobility, and yeah, so that causes a cascade of other stuff going downhill.
Yeah. That might be why I'm like a little torn about wanting to do something about it. I think it would definitely be like you ever give someone a cue and it's like
lost you.
a bad idea. No, back.
You're back now.
So you ever give someone a cue and you're like, it's kind of an experimental cue,
Yeah.
and you're like, this could be way better,
Or it could be bad.
or, or it could be bad. That's kind of what I would play with the grip for Justin here, because I don't want to get it to the point where it's like messing up the overhead and compromising that position. But I want to see if I can get this a little more smooth with it as well. Like if he was straight up just Olympic weightlifting at a meet, it would be a narrow grip, set them wide, and then go. This is different because it's like a touch and go. It's like a pseudo. So it's like we're trying to have some happy mediums with that. I would just play with that though. That's a tough one because of the overhead and touch and go. Anything
Justin,
else
how is
before?
your shoulder doing with your PT?
It's getting so much better. We did some clean and jerks, I think, or thrusters last week, I think it was. I forgot what it was, but it was recently. And I was like, this feels like a different movement for me. Like having
That's
so much
nice.
more stability overhead and not having to have the bar like in front of me, but getting it stacked. I was like, God, this feels like it was like 95 pounds. I'm like, this is not feeling heavy like it used to be an absolute struggle.
Like a lot of comfort, like a lot more comfort, I would call it.
Yeah. And I didn't feel like I'm fighting to take the bar back as opposed to just getting it more straight up.
Such a good example of like when we see people move and I talk about like being able to move more efficient and like you save so much energy when you're efficient. Like that's a good example of that. You're saying the same weight feels substantially more different just because you're in a good spot now. That's good to hear. It's about time. You guys have anything before we call it a day? Cool. Thanks for bearing with me today, guys. I'm like hot spotting in Starbucks an hour from home, so I appreciate the time delay and bearing with the unstable connection. And I'll see y'all all on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Guys,
All right. I'm out of town next week, by the way.
I always wonder when you're gone, so thanks for letting me know. Have a good trip.